Most sports cars are light. Most sports cars are nimble. These 4 cars were neither. They weighed as much as modern SUVs, guzzled fuel like trucks, and cost more than houses. And yet, they embarrassed everything else on the road. Here is how they did it. The year is 1959 on the French Riviera. A sleek coupe growls to the curb outside a cafe in Nice. Chrome gleams in the Mediterranean sun. This is the Facel Vega HK500, a French luxury grand touring car that turns every head on the street. This elegant machine tips the scales at nearly 3,800 pounds, roughly 1,750 kilograms. That is heavy for a sports car. But under the hood sits a mighty American V8 engine that makes this weight almost irrelevant. The story begins with Jean Daninos, a French industrialist who dreamed of building a grand French touring car. Daninos had a background in aviation and had worked with Citroën. He set up his company Facel in the 1930s. The name stood for Forge et Atelier de Construction de Reloir. After World War II, Facel built car bodies for other brands until Daninos introduced his own car in 1954. This was the first Facel Vega. By 1958, the design evolved into the HK500. The HK500 name carried an intriguing code. Some say HK stood for horsepower kilogram, hinting at its impressive power-to-weight ratio. This car was a Franco-American collaboration in spirit. It combined European style and chassis engineering with a proven American engine. The power plant was a Chrysler 383 cubic inch V8. In an era when many European sports cars had tiny engines, the HK500 boasted this massive American powerhouse. The performance numbers were staggering for the time. The HK500 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 8.4 seconds. Top speed exceeded 140 miles per hour, or 225 kilometers per hour. Facel Vega advertised the HK500 as one of the fastest 4-seat coupes in the world. This was a luxury cruiser that could outrun pure sports cars. British racing driver Lance Macklin helped design the chassis. This gave the big coupe surprisingly good handling for its day. Reviewers noted that the HK500 could corner and ride as nicely as other top European grand touring cars. It handled far better than typical bulky American cars of the era. That was a point of pride. The car was heavy, yes, but it was not clumsy. Slide into the cabin, and you entered a world of 1950s opulence. The interior was draped in fine leather and accented with real wood trim. The dashboard looked like an airplane cockpit, filled with dials and switches. This reminded passengers that the founder came from the aviation world. The HK500 was built as a high-speed comfort machine. The French called it a grand routier, meant for zooming across European highways. It had features ahead of its time. By 1960, the HK500 came standard with 4-wheel disc brakes to tame its speed. Power steering was available. If you got the automatic transmission, it was the same smooth Chrysler torque flight you would find in a big American cruiser. The HK500 was built for effortless fast travel. Owning a Facel Vega HK500 was like joining a private club of celebrities and royals. The car cost about $10,000 in 1958. That was as much as a Ferrari or Aston Martin back then. Only the wealthy elite could afford it. Movie stars Tony Curtis and Ava Gardner each had one. Rumor says Gardner loved hers so much she bought 3 over time. Artist Pablo Picasso owned a Facel Vega. Famous British racing hero Stirling Moss also drove one. Even foreign royalty like the Shah of Iran and the King of Morocco drove Facel Vegas. For the rich and famous, this car was a perfect mix of style and speed. Stirling Moss, who was used to the fastest race cars, would use an HK500 road car to comfortably blast between European racetracks. This was a testament to how well it handled long, fast drives. The Facel Vega HK500 also gained a bit of dark fame in literature circles. In 1960, Nobel Prize-winning author Albert Camus was riding in a Facel Vega HK500 when it tragically crashed. The accident killed him and the driver. Some speculated that the car's tremendous power and weight could be tricky to handle if you were not used to it. Despite that shadow, the HK500's legacy remains one of glamour and performance. It was a bold experiment. A heavy luxury French car that could roar past Ferraris and Aston Martins of its day. Facel Vega only built 489 HK500s, making them rare treasures today. Those lucky enough to see or drive, one never forget the experience. The HK500 proved that sometimes weight is not everything. With enough style and horsepower, a big-boned car could dance with the best of them on the highway. Fast forward to Britain in the late 1960s. Picture a rainy night on a twisting English country road. Most sports cars of the era might struggle for grip on the wet curves. But not the Jensen FF. This British Grand Tourer had a secret superpower. It was the world's first production sports car with full-time all-wheel drive. The letters FF stood for Ferguson Formula, the name of the innovative all-wheel drive system. At a glance, the Jensen FF looked a lot like its sister car, the Jensen Interceptor. It was a sleek, long-hooded coupe with a big American V8 engine. But the FF was a few inches longer and packed with cutting-edge technology. It was heavy and complex, yet it could rocket down slick roads with confidence that other cars of the time simply could not match. Under the hood, the Jensen FF carried a formidable engine, a 6.3-liter Chrysler V8 with around 325 horsepower. This was the same type of American V8 power plant that muscle cars used, giving the heavy FF plenty of punch. How heavy was it? The FF weighed about 3,800 to 4,000 pounds. That is roughly 1,730 to 1,830 kilograms depending on equipment, as much as a modern mid-size sport utility vehicle. To accommodate the all-wheel drive hardware, the FF's chassis had to be stretched about 4 extra inches in the nose. All that added some weight compared to the standard Interceptor. The all-wheel drive system made it about 270 pounds heavier than the two-wheel drive version. But thanks to the mighty engine, performance was still impressive. The Jensen FF could do 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 8 seconds and reach a top speed around 130 miles per hour, or 209 kilometers per hour. In the late 1960s, those were very quick numbers, especially for a plush 4-seater loaded with luxury. What truly made the Jensen FF special was its advanced drivetrain and safety features. It did not just have all-wheel drive. It also featured an early anti-lock braking system called Dunlop Maxaret, adapted from aircraft technology. In an era when no other road car had computer-aided brakes, the FF could automatically reduce wheel lockup under heavy braking to help prevent skids. This was revolutionary stuff. The full-time all-wheel drive system distributed power to both front and rear wheels all the time, giving the car exceptional traction. Drivers found that the FF felt far more assured in bad weather than almost any other grand touring car of its era. Imagine driving through rain or even snow in a high-powered car and feeling the tires just grip. The FF delivered that, long before Audi Quattros or modern all-wheel drive sports cars came along. Those who did own an FF, however, were in love with its blend of brute force and confidence. Driving the Jensen FF was like piloting a gentleman's muscle car that refused to lose its cool on slippery roads. Reviewers in Britain were amazed at how this heavy coupe could handle. With power steering added to manage the extra weight up front, the FF could sweep through corners sure-footedly. If the rear wheels started to slip, the front wheels pulled the car back in line. This was a new sensation back then. One journalist called it a scorchingly fast grand touring car that behaves impeccably even in the wet. The writer noted that a skilled driver could exploit all that V8 power thanks to the traction. The FF's braking ability was also a lifesaver. The early anti-lock brake system helped shorten stops and keep the car stable when you stomped on the pedal. Inside, the Jensen FF was as luxurious as you would expect from a British Grand Tourer. Leather seats, rich wood trim, and a big glass rear hatch for luggage made it both posh and practical for road trips. People would often not realize it was anything more than a regular Interceptor, until they noticed the extra vent on the side fender. A small grille on each front flank, and the subtle FF badges marked it as special. Those vents marked the spot of the unique center differential underneath. In the end, the Jensen FF became a bit of a legend. It proved that a car could be both heavy and high-tech, delivering speed with stability. While it did not sell in large numbers due to its cost and complexity, the FF paved the way for the performance all-wheel drive cars we know today. This British beast let drivers thunder down rainy lanes with a smile, decades before Audi Quattro became a household name. For that, the Jensen FF holds a special place in automotive history. Our next story takes us to Italy in the mid-1960s. A group of visionary engineers set out to create a street car that could conquer the racetrack. The result was the Grifo A3C Strada, a car that combined Italian design flair with American V8 power. And it was fast. The name looks a bit complex, so let's break it down. ISO was the brand, founded by Renzo Rivolta, who also made the famous Isetta microcar. Grifo was the model line. A3C stood for Autostrada 3 Competizione. Strada meant the street version, while Competizione meant the pure race version. But even the Strada was essentially a race car for the road. Think of a low-slung, wide-bodied coupe with curves like a Ferrari and a thunderous Corvette engine under the hood. It sat ultra-low, almost like a shark on wheels. It had a long sculpted nose and a chopped-off cam tail for aerodynamics. This car looked born for Le Mans. Because it was. The ISO Grifo A3C was the brainchild of engineer Giotto Bizzarini, a genius who had worked on the Ferrari 250 GTO. That car is one of the most legendary race cars ever made. Bizzarini teamed up with designer Giorgetto Giugiaro, who styled the body, and coach builder Piero Drogo. Together, they made a dream team of car creation. In 1963 to 1964, they built the first prototypes. The car was intended to race in endurance events like the 24 Hours of Le Mans, facing off against Ferraris and Fords. To give it an edge, they did something bold. Instead of an exotic European engine, they used a proven Chevrolet 327 V8. This was a 5.4-liter engine from America, the same type found in a Corvette. This engine was reliable and could make big horsepower without fuss. Bizzarini mounted it so far back in the chassis that it was almost front mid-engined. Mechanics had to access the rear of the engine via a panel in the dashboard. Why? Pushing the engine toward the center gave the car better weight distribution, which is crucial for handling. The car also had not one, not two, but 3 fuel tanks, one on each side and one behind the seats. This helped it go the distance in long races and kept the balance even as fuel was used. Despite all these racing features, the A3C Strada was technically a road car. You could put a license plate on it. It even had options like wind-up windows and a bit of sound insulation if the buyer wanted. But make no mistake, this was a ferocious machine in a tuxedo. The A3C Strada's weight came in around 1,270 kilograms, about 2,800 pounds. Heavier than a tiny Porsche or Ferrari race car of the time, but still relatively light because of its aluminum body. The entire body was made of duralumin alloy panels riveted onto the frame. This gave it a raw, aircraft-like appearance, with rows of rivets visible. And the performance? Bizzarini tuned the Corvette V8 to make anywhere from 350 to 400, plus horsepower, depending on the specification. The Strada street version made about 365 horsepower, good for 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6 seconds, and a top speed around 160 to 165 miles per hour, or 257 to 265 kilometers per hour. The full competition version had over 400 horsepower and reportedly could exceed 170 miles per hour on the Mulsanne Straight at Le Mans. Truly astounding in the mid-1960s. The ISO Grifo A3C proved its mettle on the track. In the 1965 24 Hours of Le Mans, an A3C won its class for cars over 5.0 liters and finished 14th overall. It beat out many factory-backed cars, despite being from a smaller company. The French drivers who achieved this victory showed that the heavy-ish Italian coupe could last through a brutal day and night race and come out on top of its category. In the end, the ISO Grifo A3C Strada is a car of legend. It taught the world that mixing and matching the best of different worlds could create something truly remarkable. Italian design genius and American horsepower made a powerful combination. Heavy? Perhaps a bit. But with Bizzarini's clever engineering, moving weight around and optimizing balance plus raw power, this car became a giant slayer on the track. It remains one of the coolest stories of the 1960s, the heavyweight contender that shocked the competition and etched its name in racing history. Our final heavy hero is a car that looks like it drove straight out of a science fiction movie and onto 1970s roads. Meet the Citroën SM, France's idea of a high-performance luxury sports car in the early 1970s. At first sight, the SM is striking. Low, long, and aerodynamic, with a sharply tapered nose and a roofline that slopes like a teardrop. In fact, Citroën engineered it in a wind tunnel, achieving a drag coefficient around 0.33. That was very sleek for its time. It was also packed with futuristic technology. But one thing the Citroën SM was not is light. This grand tourer, loaded with gadgets and a big engine, weighed about 1,460 kilograms, or 3,219 pounds in standard form. With all the options and United States spec bumpers, some versions topped 1,500 kilograms. Yet despite being a heavyweight by sports car standards, the SM was fast. In fact, it was the fastest front-wheel drive car in the world when it was introduced. The story of the SM starts with Citroën's purchase of the Italian sports car maker Maserati in 1968. Citroën, famous for innovative but slow family cars like the DS, wanted to create a flagship performance car, so they asked Maserati to provide a high-output engine. The Citroën SM ended up with a Maserati V6 engine tucked under its long hood. A 2.7-liter V6, later expanded to 3.0 in some markets. This engine produced around 170 horsepower, up to 180 horsepower with fuel injection. Not huge by muscle car standards, but plenty for a finely tuned French car. The SM also inherited Citroën's famous hydropneumatic suspension, a self-leveling, height-adjustable suspension system that made the car glide over roads like a magic carpet. The result was a big coupe that could cruise at very high speeds in serene comfort. How high? The factory claimed 120 kilometers per hour, or 137 miles per hour. Some tests even hit 235 kilometers per hour, or 146 miles per hour. That was supercar territory in 1970, remarkable for a front-wheel drive grand tourer carrying lots of luxury weight. The Citroën SM might have been heavy, but it had an incredibly sophisticated chassis to manage it. The hydropneumatic suspension automatically adjusted to keep the car level, even if passengers or cargo weight shifted. This meant that at high speeds, or under hard braking, the car would not squat or dive like normal cars. It stayed level and stable. The SM also introduced a new kind of power steering called Diravi, which was a speed-sensitive steering assist. At parking lot speeds, The steering was ultra-light, and you could twirl the wheel with one finger. At highway speeds, the system tightened up to give more feedback and stability. It even self-centered automatically. If you let go of the wheel, it would return to center, an uncanny feature that some drivers needed time to get used to. All these systems were powered by high-pressure hydraulics. The SM hissed and whirred to life like a living creature each time you started it. Thanks to its suspension and steering, the SM handled its weight brilliantly. In corners, it was balanced and had tremendous grip for a front-wheel drive car. It was often described as feeling smaller and lighter to drive than it actually was. And the brakes were powerful discs at all four wheels, with futuristic features like load-sensitive brake pressure distribution. The SM could stop as impressively as it could go. The Citroën SM was as much a showpiece as it was a car. People gawked at its design. The front end had a smooth glass panel covering 6 quartz iodine headlights in European models that could swivel with the steering to light up curves at night. It was a sight to behold. A futuristic, lime green Grand Touring car bounding over desert dunes where normally only Jeeps or Land Rovers would feel at home. That victory proved the SM's extraordinary engineering. Its combination of traction, front-wheel drive, helped in mud and sand, smooth ride, and reliable Maserati power made it durable and quick even off-road. Ultimately, the Citroën SM's run was relatively short. New United States crash regulations and the 1970s fuel crisis led to its discontinuation by 1975. But its legacy looms large. The SM showed that a car could be indulgently heavy with luxury features and still perform with the best, using technology to overcome any drawbacks of weight. It remains one of the coolest classic cars. A sculpted spaceship for the road that could fly along at 140 miles per hour, hydroplaning on a cushion of engineering genius. In the pantheon of heavy yet fast cars, the Citroën SM shines bright as a triumph of innovation and imagination, proving that sometimes brains can beat brawn even in the sports car world.